Hey guys, my name is Jay and I am just a guy with a Bible, and I'm continuing on in this little series of videos that I've entitled 3-Minute Theology. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm probably going to have to change the name to just Theology for Everyone, because sometimes it's just really hard to get across the depths of some of this information that I'm hoping will help you in a 3-minute time frame. But today I want to continue on. I know last time I said I was going to go to special revelation, but I want to continue on in general revelation for just a minute, because last time I spoke about how if we're going to learn about who God is, we've got to have sources of information to learn from. That's how you study something, is if you want to know something about, for instance, the coronavirus, you've got to study sources and cases to gather information and collect data to make conclusions and have understanding about what exactly it is. And in the same way, God has chosen to reveal himself to us in a variety of ways. And the first way that I talked last time was about general revelation through creation. God reveals himself through the created order, and we can see how he is powerful and he is mighty and he is imaginative and creative and precise with detail and order. All these things play a role in helping us understand the nature of God. And while God does reveal himself through creation, he also reveals himself through the conscience of mankind. Now, real quick, by definition, general revelation means this: God reveals himself to all people in all places and at all times. So this helps us as those who have been created in his image to know that there are places to go to so we can learn about him. And so, like I said today, I want to talk about the conscience. Now, God has created all mankind with a glimpse of himself, or a reflection of himself in us. If you were to do a Google search of the 7 moral laws that are shared among all peoples across the globe, you will find that there are tons of institutes of higher education, very respectable organizations that have done research in studying people groups, both in large populated areas and very remote areas as well, and have come to the conclusion that there are common themes of morality and ethics that are shared among all of the people. Now, they have different expressions or different reflections, if you will, depending on the culture, but the premise behind them, or the basis of them, were all the same. For instance, in all people groups that were studied, it was found that murder was wrong. So it was just this idea of good and bad, of right and wrong, and a lot of other things that actually are shared across the human experience, regardless of where we live on the face of the globe. And that is actually God's revelation of himself in us who have been created by him, to show us a little bit about who he is. In other words, we are seeing in our moral compass, if you will, in our conscience, if you will, the reflection of who God is. That he is a just God, that he is a good God, that there is right and there is wrong, there is love and there is anger and there is peace, and all these things that we experience as emotions that flow from, or at least reflect something of our conscience, is a reflection of us being created in the image of God, albeit marred by sin, but yet helps us understand a little bit about who he is just by knowing who we are. Now, the Bible actually speaks about this truth in Romans chapter 2, and I want to read this to you. Verses 14 and 15 says, "Even Gentiles who do not have God's written law show that they know his law when they instinctively obey it, even without having it. They demonstrate that God's law is written on their hearts, for their own conscience and thoughts either accuse them or tell them they are doing right." Now, this is really kind of earth-shaking, because we find that what that passage is teaching is there is a group of people. They were known by their demographic location, or their ethnicity, if you will, called Gentiles. And the Jewish people that were hearing these words were kind of taken back, because they were the ones who had received what we know as God's law. That is the Big Ten Commandments. And those commandments were really guidelines and instructions on how to live in a way to enjoy life to the full with God. But the weird thing was that they were finding people who were not the recipients at that time of God's law actually living according to the law. And the Bible says it was because it was written on their hearts by God. Their conscience was actually revealing what was right and what was wrong, and was actually guiding their thoughts and actions with us. So general revelation really has two expressions to it, in which God has revealed himself generally to all people in all places and at all times, using two primary means, and that is the created world, but also in the conscience of mankind that has a shared moral and ethical presupposition or package, if you will. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this has taken many different forms and many different variations throughout the ages in regards to morals and ethics. And like I said before, while we are created in the image of God, that image has been marred or broken because of sin in the world. And whenever sin has its impact on the lives of us who occupy time and space, then we find that even though we have been created in the image of God, that sin has marred that. So it's not always perfect, it's not always right. And so the same is true of our conscience. Our direction of morality and ethics is marred by sin as well. So that's why you see a lot of different variations and even disagreements on many of these topics. But at the end of the day, when you pull back all the layers of the onions, God has made himself known to us through mankind. We have a value system. We determine things to be right and wrong, good and bad, righteous and wicked, so on and so forth. We could talk about so many other things, our concept of love and relationship. Where does that come from? That is all an expression, or actually a reflection of who God is, as we have been created in his image. So again, I hope this helps you. I try to do 3-minute theology. I'm probably going to change the name to Theology for Everyone. So in a couple of days, if you want to have access to new content when it becomes available, you can search YouTube for that channel name and pull that up there, subscribe. You'll be notified whenever new content becomes available. And I'm just going to keep on, because I believe that the more we understand who God is, the more we'll understand his great love for us, his compassion and mercy and grace for us, his goodness to us, and ultimately his salvation of us. So again, I hope this helps you. I hope you have a great start to your week, and everything will come back together again whenever I have time to make another shoot. And we'll talk more again next time about how God reveals himself specifically. It's called special revelation or specific revelation, and it'll deal with issues of the scriptures, the Bible itself. So again, hope you have a great week. God bless. Bye-bye.